Welcome back. If you believe love should uplift and not control, leave a comment sharing where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss these powerful slices of life beneath the surface of perfection. That night, city lights shimmered like shattered diamonds on wet pavement. Car horns echoed as limousines glided toward one shared destination, the annual prestigious gala at the Eden Hall Rosewood Hotel. Inside the marble-tiled hall, members of the elite moved like soft streams of silk beneath crystal chandeliers. Laughter and clinking glasses blended with light jazz drifting from a corner stage. At the entrance, a couple drew every gaze. Amelia Thornton stepped out of the car first. Her silver dress wasn't showy, but hugged her figure as if sewn from moonlight. That graceful elegance lit up her entire face. Gregory Thornton followed behind, polished, dashing in a crisp black tuxedo. He glanced at his wife, his eyes flickering briefly with something unreadable. A photographer captured the moment.
"Amelia, you look stunning tonight,"
a man called out cheerfully. Gregory forced a tight smile, placing his hand on her waist.
"I picked that dress for her,"
he said. Amelia gave a polite nod, her eyes still sparkling. She loved evenings like this, where the light and music made life feel wide open. But within that brilliance, something felt fragile, like a cold wind slipping down her back beneath the shimmer. Music floated among the clinking of glasses, polite laughter, and perfunctory handshakes. Amelia glided through the ballroom like a butterfly drifting in a garden of rare blooms. She smiled, conversed, always maintaining grace. But every time she turned, Gregory's eyes followed, not lovingly, but as if measuring. "You look incredible tonight, Sarah Mallory," an old friend exclaimed near the buffet table. "That dress is perfect. Where did you get it?" Amelia smiled softly. "Greg picked it." A surprise gift. She wasn't lying. He truly had on a rainy afternoon, walking into a luxury boutique saying he wanted to see her shine like a star on a dark sky. Back then, she was touched. But now, the gift felt like a silk rope tightening around her. Every seam whispering, "I decide how much you get to shine." Gregory appeared just as Sarah walked away. He said nothing but pressed a firm hand around her waist, just enough to let Amelia feel the message beneath. A signal. A silent command. "Is something wrong?" she asked softly, forcing a smile. He didn't answer. His eyes scanned the men she'd spoken with. Tonight was about radiance. But shadows had begun forming, quiet, precise, dangerous, like a storm behind glass. The music shifted. The chandelier's light glowed over dancers swaying gently to a slow jazz rhythm. Amelia reached for a glass of wine, exhaling as if to steady her thoughts. Gregory remained close. Silent, tense. She tried to push past the unease, flashing a smile at someone she recognized. She needed a moment of normalcy. And when she saw Mr. Graham, a longtime family friend, her heart lifted.
"Amelia, you look like a queen tonight," he laughed warmly. "Remember when I spilled a whole pot of mulled wine on your dress that year?"
She laughed. "I'll never forget." My mom stayed mad for a week. They both chuckled. It was the first real laugh she'd had all night. Then Gregory appeared, a cold shadow slicing through warmth. "Excuse me, Mr. Graham. I need a word with my wife." Before Amelia could react, he gently pulled her away toward a quiet hallway, his voice low but sharp. "What do you think you're doing?" Amelia blinked. "Just talking. He's family." Gregory's eyes narrowed. "You laughed too loudly. Everyone was watching." "You like that, don't you?" She swallowed hard, keeping her voice calm.
Greg, it's a party.
I'm just enjoying it. He looked her up and down.
You know what you look like tonight. Don't pretend.
Blood drained from her face. The dress he had gifted her, once a gesture of love, now felt like a silk trap, every fold a chain. She opened her mouth to speak, but Gregory turned and walked away, leaving her alone in the glittering, cold corridor. The music softened. The band shifted to a delicate ballad, piano keys falling like rain over the marble floor. Lights pooled gently onto the ballroom's center.
Let's go,
Gregory said, offering his hand like a social formality. No eye contact, no warmth, just command. Amelia placed her hand in his, feeling the grip not protective, but controlling. They stepped onto the floor. Other couples twirled gracefully in the cool air, but the two of them stood like cracked halves of a coin. She searched his eyes for a flicker of the man who once whispered, "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever held on a snowy night." But his gaze now was steel, cold and murky. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. He leaned close, breath sharp.
You enjoy the attention. You live for their eyes.
She froze. "You bought me this dress."
"And you wore it like you wanted to be devoured,"
he said, voice even but laced with bitterness. Amelia's steps halted. Her heart beat against the tempo of the song. She couldn't keep dancing to a melody that was crushing her spirit.
"Greg, don't do this. People are watching."
"Good," he hissed. "Let them see who you really are." He let go. She stood alone under the lights like a forgotten marble statue. Applause rang out as the music ended, but within her a crack had formed. Not in her dress, but in the fragile faith she had clung to for far too long. Amelia stepped off the dance floor, each heartbeat thudding like thunder in her ears. She needed air. A moment. Anything to stop herself from crying beneath so many curious eyes. She slipped down the hall into the powder room. The door closed behind her and her knees nearly buckled. With trembling fingers, she reached for her phone, a text from Gregory. "We're leaving soon. Come meet me." She wiped her tears quickly, inhaled deep, and stepped out. The ballroom buzzed. Music flowed again. Laughter mingled with clinking glasses. At the bar, Gregory chatted with Mr. Barrett, his boss smiling stiffly. As Amelia approached, Mr. Barrett lifted a glass. "Amelia, you're stunning tonight. Gregory's a lucky man." Gregory nodded stiffly, his eyes flashing toward his wife. "Very lucky," he said, voice tight. As the boss moved away, Gregory's tone shifted. "Happy now? Soaking up all that attention? Playing the leading lady, are we?" "You're being cruel," Amelia replied quietly but firmly. "I haven't done anything wrong. I'm just being myself." Gregory's stare hardened. "Let's see what yourself really means." Just then, Mrs. Vaughn, the gala host, called from the stage. "Would all couples please join us for a special commemorative photo?" Applause. Gregory grabbed Amelia's hand and pulled her forward. Cameras flashed. Laughter poses spotlight. But Gregory's grip tightened like invisible cuffs. "Stand right here," he muttered. "Why just stand? I'm not done yet." Before she could reply, Gregory raised his voice to the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, I have something to share." Light laughter followed, expecting a toast. But the next words froze the room. "Since everyone's been admiring my wife's dress, maybe she should show you how she looks without it." A gasp, a shattered wine glass, and silence pulled taut across the ballroom. Amelia stood frozen, pale, eyes wide. Gregory folded his arms, eyes locked as if waiting for her to break. The room sank into a suffocating silence. Music died. Laughter vanished. Every eye turned to the stage where Amelia Thornton stood, unmoving arms, limp lips pressed so tight they bled.
Go on.
Gregory sneered, calm but cruel.
You wanted attention, didn't you? Give them what they came for.
A few phones were quietly raised. Whispers slithered. Faces turned uncomfortable. But Gregory stood firm, arms crossed, eyes burning with punishment. Mrs. Vaughn rushed forward, voice trembling but firm.
Gregory, stop this. This isn't the place. You've crossed a line.
He ignored her. She crossed it first. Amelia's heart thundered like war drums. She couldn't hear people anymore. Couldn't see lights. Only a dark void clenching her chest, and one question, am I as weak as he thinks I am? From the audience, Sarah's voice broke the silence. Amelia, come down. You don't have to do this. But Amelia didn't move. Instead, her trembling hands rose. Slowly, deliberately, she slipped the thin strap from her shoulder, letting the silver gown slide off, pooling at her feet like quiet water. She stood in a simple slip, modest, not provocative. But the room froze. Not from exposed skin, but from public dignity being stripped away. Gregory's smirk faltered. He hadn't expected this. Something like guilt flickered in his eyes, but too late. Mrs. Vaughn rushed forward, wrapping Amelia in her shawl, pulling her close. Come, sweetheart. Let's get you out of here. The room was silent. Then someone shouted, Shame on you, Gregory. Then another. Then applause, not for the undressing, but for the strength it took to rise, to stand tall beneath humiliation. Amelia walked off stage, head bowed, but her steps steady. And for the first time that night, Gregory stood alone, surrounded by light but utterly exposed. Behind the stage, the lights dimmed completely. No more clinking glasses, no more camera flashes, just a single velvet chair where Amelia sat, arms wrapped around herself as if clinging to the last shred of dignity. Mrs. Vaughn's shawl was still draped over her shoulders, soft, yet heavy like a cloak woven with unshed tears. Amelia trembled not from the cold, but from emptiness, because something inside her had just been torn open in front of the entire city. You're safe now, Mrs. Vaughn said as she sat beside her, her voice gentle yet firm. No one has the right to do that to you. No one. Amelia shook her head, eyes blurred with tears. Why is it that when everyone thought I looked my best, he made me feel my worst? Mrs. Vaughn didn't answer right away. She simply held Amelia's hand, gripping it tight. Then she said softly, because for some people, your light forces them to see the darkness inside themselves, and they can't bear it. The door burst open. Sarah rushed in and embraced Amelia without a word. That hug wasn't just friendship, it was a lifeline for someone on the verge of collapse. Amelia broke down for the first time that night. No more pretending. No more holding it in. You did the right thing, Sarah whispered. Everyone in that room saw it. Across the hall, Gregory stood alone near the bar, an empty glass in his hand, eyes vacant. People who once smiled at him now avoided his gaze. A server bumped into him, didn't apologize, didn't stop. He pulled out his phone. Texted Amelia, "Come home. Everything will be fine." No reply. A minute later, another text. "You embarrassed me." Still silence. "Then I'm sorry." And this time he didn't just get no response. For the first time, he was afraid of himself. The next morning, Amelia sat in Mrs. Vaughn's cozy kitchen, hands cupped around a ceramic mug, steam rising like a gentle fog of peace. She hadn't slept, nor did she cry. She just sat quietly, as if trying to piece herself back together from the void left by last night. On the table, her phone kept lighting up. Messages from journalists, from coworkers, from strangers who'd seen the clip. One of them captured the exact moment her dress fell to the floor. In the video, her eyes no longer looked like someone humiliated. They looked like someone rising from it. Sarah held the phone, reading the messages aloud. One woman wrote, "My husband once forced me to kneel at his birthday party. Watching Amelia stand there, I saw myself, but this time I didn't feel ashamed." Amelia swallowed, looking up. Sarah gave a gentle smile. "You did what so many couldn't. And you survived." Mrs. Vaughn nodded. "Did you know years ago my husband did something similar right in the middle of a house party, just because I laughed too much with one of his friends?" Amelia froze. "And what did you do?" "I stayed for 3 more years. Out of fear, shame, and thinking it was my fault. Then one day I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman standing there." She squeezed Amelia's hand. "You're luckier than I was. You said enough right in the middle of a room still clapping." Amelia looked out the window. The sun had risen. Online, her story was spreading. But instead of mockery, there was empathy. Hundreds of women sent messages of gratitude. They shared their pain for the first time, not feeling alone. She took a deep breath, as if inhaling an entirely new world. "I want to do something, not just for me, but for those who've been treated the same." Mrs. Vaughn smiled. "That's the moment you start becoming the woman you were born to be." Their house, the once brilliant mansion lit up for parties, was now dark as a hollow shell. Gregory Thornton sat alone in the kitchen, the polished marble reflecting a man he could no longer look in the eye. The phone blinked constantly, but none of the notifications were from her. Social media had exploded since dawn. The clip of him humiliating Amelia on stage had gone viral. But what stung Gregory wasn't the public outrage. It was her face in the video, not angry, not fighting back, just deeply wounded. Enough to make him ashamed of himself. He texted again. "I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that." No reply. He called his best friend Tom, only to hear a curt response. "Don't call me until you know what you've done." He messaged his boss, Mr. Barrett. "I'm sorry about what happened." The reply was ice cold, Gregory. "Take an indefinite leave. We'll reconvene when emotions no longer override judgment, if there's anything left to discuss." Finally, he called his mother. Linda Thornton arrived just hours later. She didn't ask questions or beat around the bush. She looked straight at her son, once seen as successful and composed, now crumbling into a black hole. "What did you do to your wife?" she asked, voice dry as winter wind through an old door. Gregory bowed his head. "I just wanted her to stop. She made me feel small." Mrs. Linda sat across from him, never breaking eye contact. "Your father said the same thing when he humiliated me in front of guests. Do you know what I wished for then?" Gregory said nothing. "I wished someone had told him love isn't dragging someone down so you feel taller. But no one did. And I stayed silent for almost 20 years. She stood. "You followed that same path, Greg. But if you don't want to become him, this is where it stops. Not to win Amelia back, but to save yourself." Gregory buried his face in his hands in a kitchen where all outside noise had vanished, leaving only the sound of a loneliness he'd never feared until now. A week after the gala, the atmosphere inside Mrs. Vaughn's small house was still quiet, but this time it wasn't the silence of hurt. It was the stillness of healing. Amelia sat by the window, sunlight filtering through her loose hair. In front of her were hundreds of messages, no longer mockery or pity, but testimonies, from women everywhere, from young girls who hadn't yet dared to leave, from mothers once controlled by sweet but poisonous words, and even from strangers who simply wrote, "Thank you for standing up when I couldn't." Sarah entered carrying a briefcase, placing it on the table. "I've booked the venue. This Saturday, the first meeting of the support group you suggested." Amelia looked up. Her eyes no longer carried just survival. They carried the shape of someone rebuilding and lighting the path for others. "Are you sure?" Sarah asked gently. Amelia nodded. "I can't let this story just be a viral humiliation forgotten online. It has to become something strong enough so other women never have to strip down in front of a crowd just to be reminded they're worthy of respect." Mrs. Vaughn entered bringing 2 cups of warm tea. And that's how you take it all back, not through retaliation, but through actions that slowly change the world. That Saturday morning, Amelia stepped into a small room where the meeting would be held. Inside, a dozen women were already seated, some silent, some shy, a few avoiding eye contact. Amelia stood before them. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice did not. "We were taught to stay silent to preserve reputations, taught that if someone loves us, we must endure. But I've learned something important. Silence doesn't protect anyone. Our voices, those are what save each other." The room held its breath, then a slow round of applause. Then one woman stood, then a second, a third. And in that moment, Amelia no longer remembered the spotlight from that night. She remembered only one thing. She was no longer afraid. Gregory Thornton's luxury apartment had never been this quiet. No sound of Amelia's footsteps, no familiar scent of morning coffee, just the ticking wall clock marking every lost moment and all the ones he could never reclaim. He didn't return to the office, nor to any social events. Instead, during the first week after the scandal, he walked into therapy for the first time in his life, not as a successful man, but as a man who had just lost himself. The therapist, an older woman with calm eyes, asked only one question. "In that moment, what did you want the most?" Gregory was silent, then softly replied, "I wanted her to disappear from everyone's eyes, because I couldn't bear no longer being the center of hers." The answer hit like a slap from himself to himself. In the sessions that followed, Gregory revisited a childhood he had ignored, a home where his father, controlling and domineering, turned every family dinner into a trial where his mother stayed silent and smiled just to keep the illusion of peace. "You fear becoming him," the therapist said, "but in that fear you've copied every wound he ever left." Gregory nodded, saying nothing, but for the first time he wrote a letter not to beg for forgiveness, but to take responsibility. "Amelia, I no longer hope for a reply. I just want you to know for the first time in my life I've listened to others and to myself. I'm learning how not to use power to love, but how to love without possession. Thank you for not staying silent. Thank you for not coming back." He didn't send the letter, just placed it beside the wedding album she had left behind. Each week he returned to therapy, still learning how to sit in silence without excuses. And one late evening when his mother Linda came to visit, she watched her son quietly for a long time, then softly said, "For the first time you look like a man. not a child pretending to be one. 3 months after that fateful gala night, Amelia Thornton stepped onto the stage at a women's conference. No spotlight, no ball gown, just a soft blue dress, one she had chosen for herself. The hall was full. Over 200 women, all ages, all backgrounds, all skin tones, sat in stillness listening to her as if they saw a part of themselves in her. That night I thought I had lost everything. Amelia began, her voice steady, only a slight catch in the first sentence. But then I realized there were things I had never had, and I've now found them. A deep silence followed. Then she continued, I used to think silence was how you kept peace, that if I yielded, if I slowed down, people would love me more. But love does not come with humiliation, and peace cannot exist if it costs you yourself. Applause followed, not thunderous, but solid, certain. Amelia raised her head, her eyes sweeping across the room. She no longer avoided eye contact, no longer carried shame for what had happened. Instead, she held it as proof I stood there. I was hurt, and I am still here. She smiled soft but unwavering. Your worth is not in someone else's words, not in how they look at what you wear. It's in your choice to live, to walk forward, to keep loving yourself, even when the world tells you you're not worthy. As she finished, the room erupted in applause. Some women stood, many wept. They embraced one another as if released from something long imprisoned. At the back of the room, Mrs. Vaughn waited. She hugged Amelia tightly and whispered, You've done what generations of women before didn't dare, stood up even while still trembling. That evening on the way home, Amelia stopped by a familiar park. The wind was cool, the streetlights warm. She opened her phone. One unread message from Gregory sent a week ago. I'm not asking you to come back. I just want to thank you for not forgiving me because it forced me to learn to forgive myself. She didn't reply. But for the first time when she thought of Gregory, she no longer felt fear, only sorrow for a man who had loved the wrong way. Amelia smiled and walked on. She knew clearly this wasn't the end. It was the first chapter of the life she was writing for herself.